Hey y'all, today I'm in Trigg County, Kentucky, in Land Between the Lakes, in the former Pleasant Hill community. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Pleasant Hill Baptist Church that once stood here. It was in the area of the Laura Furnace, and the furnace was built in 1855, but we're going to go back even before that. The church was located about 2 miles west of the Cumberland River and 6 miles south of Golden Pond, Kentucky. Today, Wrangler's Campground is located nearby. I was reading an old issue of the Between the Rivers magazine from the spring of 2001, and I saw this article researched and written by Jesse Samuel Ross on the church. And while I already knew some of the story, I was really surprised to learn that my third great-grandfather, David Calhoun, had donated the land for this church back in 1842. He's buried near his parents just across the river in the Donaldson Creek area near Calhoun Hill. So I thought that's where they lived. And this article was really interesting to me to find out that they lived in the Pleasant Hill area instead. I would like to note that, as with most last names, the spellings and pronunciations changed over the generations. The name Calhoun was originally Cohoun without an L. Today it's Calhoun, and while Jesse wrote Cohoun in the article, I'm going to refer to the present-day name of Calhoun for clarity. Today it is spelled Calhoun. The article reads that the church was organized on November 4th, 1842 in Trigg County at the home of David Calhoun and his wife Rebecca Futrell Calhoun, near the place where the church and the school would later be built. This is a look around the cemetery, which you'll pass through before you get to where the church sat. The church was organized by elders Jesse Cox and T.L. Baker of Trigg County and William Skinner of Callaway County, Kentucky. David Calhoun gave 2 acres of land for the church in 1844, although the deed wasn't drawn up until 1848. The following names were some of the charter members of Pleasant Hill Baptist Church: Charles C. Bogard and his wife, Aletha; Bolin Burdette, Catherine Bird, Margaret Barrow, and Benjamin Champion and his wife, Martha Calhoun Champion. Martha was a daughter of David, and Benjamin Champion, his son-in-law. They were my second great-grandparents. After the organization, David was chosen as deacon, and Winburn Futrell was chosen church clerk. William Skinner of Callaway County was the first pastor. Note Winburn and Elizabeth passed in 1892, just 5 days apart. He was 78 and she was 75. The white post in the background is the marker for where the church once stood. This is a photo from the 60s, not long before TVA would take over. There aren't many photos of the church, so thank you, Rick Timmons. On Saturday, December 31st, 1842, after the preaching service, the doors of the church were open for receiving members. Fanny Stunson and Margaret Colson were admitted as members for baptism, and on Sunday morning, January 1st, 1843, they were baptized in the Cumberland River at the place which is known as Kilgore's Landing. They were the first members added to the church after its organization. Can you imagine how cold their baptism was on January 1st in the river? I hope they had a fire going on the riverbank for afterwards. But just 6 months later, at the June meeting, 1843, Fanny Stunson was given a letter of dismissal from the church. She was the first person to join and the first to get a letter of dismissal. The reason was not listed, but it could have been anything from dancing to having a disagreement with a fellow church member. In 1844, a log house of worship was built on the land donated by David Calhoun. This is Mount Zion Church in nearby Stewart County as an example of a log church. Another early member of the church was Temperance, better known as Tempy Colson. She was born in Northampton County, North Carolina, and she joined this church in 1853. She was a faithful member until her death in 1882 at the age of 86. Her sister was Margaret Colson, who I spoke about earlier. Their maiden name was Griffin, and they both married Colsons. I was told that this stone under the tree beside her is that of her mother, but I really don't know. Margaret married Joel Colson in 1826 in Trigg County, Kentucky. Other early members were William Futrell and his wife, Abashaba Futrell. Hopefully I pronounced her name correctly. Another member was E.P. Underhill and his wife, Elizabeth. You may have seen my previous video on Enoch called The Man Who Wanted Peace and Quiet. It was written on his Find a Grave bio that he asked not to be buried anywhere near his wife, as he just wanted peace and quiet, which I thought was pretty funny, and I guess some men can relate. This is Wood Calhoun. He was a brother to Martha Calhoun Champion. I'm not sure if he was a member or not, but he probably was. The article reads, another brave pioneer, Charity Futrell, was an early member of the church. She was born in Northampton County, North Carolina also, and she came to Christian, later Trigg County, Kentucky, in 1799 with her husband Nathan Futrell and other relatives. She was a member of this church at the time of her death in 1872, and she lived to be 95. Her husband, Nathan Futrell, was the little drummer boy, and I've said in a previous video, I'll do a video on him this winter when I can get up to the cemetery, but I worry about ticks until after the first hard frost. But their cemetery is just up the road from the Pleasant Hill Cemetery. It's written that there was one colored person named Diana who was listed as a member. She was a slave of Shadrach Futrell and was baptized by Pastor William Skinner in 1848. Shadrach was a son of Nathan and Charity Futrell. Some ministers that were ordained by Pleasant Hill Baptist Church were Benjamin Champion, April 29, 1848. Hardy B. Seal, 1849, A.T. Bussell, 1875, T.L. Shelton, 1875, and James M. Ross, 1879. There were many pastors over the years, with the first being William Skinner and the last being Clarence Lindsay. Early church clerks included Wilburn Futrell, 1842, Charles Bogard, 1845, William Futrell, 1848, and J.T. Berkeley, 1869. It's not known when the first school was built, but probably in the late 1800s. About 1900, the old log church was replaced with the frame church that was used until August 6, 1967, when it was purchased by TVA for the land between the lakes. There were many great revivals over the years, and the last big revival was in August 1925. Reverend Lee Ed Outland was pastor, and Reverend C.C. Sled was the evangelist. Many souls were saved, and 40 joined and were baptized. They were baptized one Sunday afternoon in the Cumberland River, opposite U.S. Lock and Dam E. One last story from Pleasant Hill. Remember my second great-grandfather, Benjamin Champion, was ordained a minister here in April 1848. Well, by October he was already in trouble and excluded on charges of misconduct and dismissed from the church. He was charged because he said, if all the Calhouns and Futrells were on a truck wagon and in 40 yards of hell, he would push them in. Remember, the Calhouns and the Futrells were his in-laws. So he was excluded as a minister on this charge, but was reinstated after about 2 years and then given a formal letter of dismissal from the church. He then moved his family to Stewart County, Tennessee, and finally became a minister in the Christian church. But I feel like he may have pestered them nonstop for those 2 years and possibly said he would leave the state and get out of their hair if they would just reinstate him as a minister. Of course, I'm just speculating, but that story always makes me laugh. The last service was held here August 6th, 1967. I hope y'all enjoyed a little bit of history on the Pleasant Hill Baptist Church. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.